They say the past is gone, but sometimes it reaches out when you least expect it. It was a slow Sunday afternoon. The sun hung low behind a veil of warm clouds, casting golden streaks across the cracked pavement of a small-town flea market. The smell of old wood, sun-dried paperbacks, and rusted metal lingered in the air like a forgotten story begging to be told. Anya Matthews moved gently through the rows of mismatched furniture and dusty antiques, her fingers tracing history through textures. A black woman in her late 30s, with sharp eyes and a soul that felt older than her years, Anya was no stranger to second-hand treasures. She was a teacher by profession, but in her heart she was a seeker. Not for riches, for stories, for pieces of forgotten time. That day, something pulled her toward the far end of the market, a small booth covered in faded quilts and cracked porcelain. And there, leaning quietly against a rotted barnwood wall, stood a mirror unlike anything she'd ever seen. It was tall, nearly 5 feet, framed in intricately carved walnut, its edges softened by time. At first glance, it looked unremarkable, but then she stepped closer. The frame had markings, not just decorative, scrolls, symbols, etchings, as if someone had written something there and tried to cover it up. And then, the moment that would change her life forever. As she brushed a cloth across the mirror's back panel, a faint shimmer caught her eye. She tilted it toward the light. That's when she saw it, faint, almost invisible. A sentence carved along the edge of the backing wood, in a language she couldn't recognize. It wasn't decoration. It was a message. She stood frozen. Something about it stirred her chest. Not fear, something else. A deep, inexplicable pull, as if the mirror hadn't just been waiting to be found, but waiting specifically for her. She looked up at the vendor, an old woman knitting beneath a straw hat. "How much for the mirror?" Anya asked, her voice calm but firm. The woman squinted as if measuring her soul. Then she shrugged. "For you? 40. Take it before I change my mind." Anya didn't ask why. She just paid and loaded the mirror gently into the back of her Honda. What she didn't know was that her simple decision to buy an old mirror would uncover a mystery, buried for generations, and lead her to a truth that would rewrite everything she thought she knew about herself and the family she came from. Back in her apartment, Anya set the mirror against the far wall away from the light. She stared at it for what felt like hours. That night, she couldn't sleep. The message, the strange script, haunted her thoughts. Was it Latin? Greek? Egyptian? A code? She grabbed her phone, snapped a picture, and began her research. At first, she found nothing. But after hours of scrolling obscure forums and forgotten genealogy databases, she found something chilling. A fragment of the script matched a nearly extinct West African dialect used only by a small community during the early 1800s. But how did that language end up here? And what was it doing inside a mirror at a random flea market in Georgia? That question kept repeating in her mind. And then, something whispered through her thoughts, clear as breath. "You were meant to find me." Have you ever felt like your ancestors were trying to tell you something? I found a secret message hidden in an antique mirror that's unraveling a family mystery I never knew existed. Get ready to uncover the truth with me. The sun rose, painting Anya's apartment in shades of orange and soft gold. But she hadn't slept. The mirror, now resting against her living room wall, seemed to glow with a quiet energy. Its presence was almost overwhelming. The faint inscription on its back was a puzzle, a whisper from a distant past, and Anya felt an urgent, almost spiritual, need to understand it. She spent the next few days in a blur of frantic research. Her apartment became a war room of history, books on forgotten languages piled high on her coffee table. Her laptop glowed late into the night, its screen displaying obscure linguistic forums, historical archives, and dusty digitized manuscripts. She cross-referenced symbols, comparing the intricate carvings to old maps of colonial trade, routes and migration patterns. Her teaching job felt like a distant memory, a mundane interruption to the captivating quest that now consumed her. The West African dialect she'd stumbled upon was called Ndenga, a language spoken by a small, isolated community in what was once a powerful kingdom, now long assimilated into modern nations. The Ndenga people were known for their rich oral traditions and their intricate carving work, often imbued with spiritual significance. But why would a mirror, seemingly from early American history, carry such a profound connection? One evening, exhausted but exhilarated, Anya found a breakthrough. A small, almost imperceptible detail in the carving, a specific swirl in one of the symbols, matched a pattern she found in a digital archive of artifacts recovered from a pre-civil war plantation site in rural Alabama. The database mentioned a collection of personal items, many with West African influences, believed to have belonged to enslaved people who managed to preserve elements of their heritage. Her heart pounded. Alabama. That was where her maternal great-grandmother's family had roots. A tremor of excitement, laced with a familiar ache of historical sorrow, ran through her. Could this mirror, could it truly be connected to her ancestors? She kept digging, following the faint breadcrumbs of history. She found an academic paper discussing the unique craftsmanship of a particular group of enslaved artisans in Alabama, skilled in wood carving and metalwork. The paper detailed how they secretly incorporated their native symbols and stories into everyday objects as a form of resistance and cultural preservation. It was a secret language hidden in plain sight. One name kept appearing in the margins of these historical records, a woman known only as Mosey, a gifted carver whose works were often described as holding spirits. The descriptions of Mosey's craft, particularly her intricate carvings of vines and roses, resonated deeply with the mirror's frame. Anya closed her laptop, her mind reeling. She walked to the mirror, touching its cold surface. The weight of the realization settled over her. This wasn't just a fascinating antique. It was a living artifact, a tangible link to a past that had been deliberately silenced. The faint Ndenga inscription, now more visible in her mind's eye, started to piece together. It wasn't a simple message. It was a complex series of symbols that, when translated, formed a story, a genealogy, a lineage. Her lineage. The inscription wasn't just words. It was a family tree etched into the wood, hinting at hidden connections and untold stories. It spoke of a woman, daughter of the moon, who carried the song of the river and whose spirit would find its reflection in distant lands. Anya felt a surge of emotions, awe, wonder, and a profound sense of responsibility. This was more than a riddle. It was a legacy. She remembered her grandmother, Ruth, whose note had simply said, "The mirror will show you what I could never say aloud." Grandma Ruth had known. She had left this mirror for Anya, knowing that only Anya, with her passion for history and her quiet, persistent spirit, would be able to unlock its secrets. This antique mirror held more than just reflections. It held secrets. My family history was about to be rewritten when I discovered a hidden message, and now I'm determined to find out who left it and why. Join me on this emotional journey. The next step was clear. Anya needed to go to Alabama, to the very place where her ancestors had endured, survived, and secretly preserved their heritage. The mirror had given her a map, a guide to a family story she never knew existed, and she was ready to follow it wherever it led. The journey to Alabama felt less like a road trip and more like a pilgrimage. Anya packed light, the mirror carefully secured in the back seat, wrapped in layers of blankets. The sprawling farmlands and dense pine forests of the South rolled by, each mile bringing her closer to a past she was desperate to reclaim. Her first stop was the local historical society in Cottonwood Creek, Alabama, a small town that barely registered on most maps. The building was a charming but dilapidated structure, filled with dusty archives and the faint scent of old paper. A stern-faced woman with spectacles perched on her nose. Mrs. Gable greeted Anya with a wary politeness. Anya explained her research, showing a printout of the Ndenga, symbols in the rough translation. Mrs. Gable listened, her expression unreadable. "We have records here, of course," Mrs. Gable stated, her voice dry as parchment. "But most of the slave narratives, well, they're fragmented, or simply not there." Anya spent days poring over brittle ledger books, faded land deeds, and scattered census records. She searched for any mention of the Ndenga language, or of anyone named Mosi, or of families with patterns matching the symbols on her mirror. The records were sparse, frustratingly incomplete, and often dehumanizing. Names were often absent, replaced by numbers or vague descriptions. It felt like hitting a brick wall. One afternoon, a local historian, Mr. Elijah Vance, a kind, elderly black man who volunteered at the society, noticed Anya's relentless focus. He approached her, his eyes warm and knowing. "You're looking for more than just names, aren't you, child?" he said gently. "You're looking for the stories they tried to bury." Mr. Vance explained that many official records had been deliberately erased or altered to obscure the true histories of enslaved people. He suggested she look beyond the official archives towards oral histories and local legends. "The truth," he said, "often hides in whispers." He also cautioned her, "Not everyone wants these stories to come to light. Some families here, they've built their lives on the silence." His words proved prophetic. As Anya began to ask more specific questions, particularly about the old evergreen plantation, which the mirror's origin hints pointed towards, she encountered subtle resistance. Some locals would politely change the subject. Others would offer vague, unhelpful anecdotes. A few outright dismissed her questions, hinting that old troubles were best left undisturbed. It was a veiled hostility, a quiet but firm message: stop digging. Then something more direct happened. Anya learned that she wasn't the only one. Interested in evergreen plantation's hidden history. An antique collector from a powerful, influential family, Mr. Silas Croft, who had inherited land bordering the old plantation, had also been subtly pushing to acquire parts of the original grounds. He was known for his ruthless business tactics and his quiet obsession with rare artifacts, especially those from the antebellum South. He often dismissed the historical significance of black heritage, viewing such items purely as investments. One evening, after leaving a local diner where she felt she was being watched, Anya found a flat tire on her car. It might have been an accident, but the chilling feeling that someone was sending a message lingered. The weight of uncovering a deeply buried past was heavier than she'd anticipated. This wasn't just a research project. It was a confrontation with history, and some people, including powerful figures like Croft, were determined to keep that history hidden or control it for their own gain. Despite the setbacks, Anya refused to be deterred. The mirror, sitting silently in her motel room, seemed to pulse with a quiet resolve. She remembered the scar on the face in her fleeting vision in the mirror. It felt like a call to action. She had come too far to turn back now. Mr. Vance had told her about a secluded, overgrown cemetery on the outskirts of Evergreen Plantation, almost forgotten by time. "The official records rarely tell the full story of who lies there," he'd said, "but the earth remembers." Armed with a faded map from Mr. Vance and a growing sense of urgency, Anya navigated through dense thickets and thorny bushes until she found it, a small, neglected plot of land, marked by crumbling stones and rusted iron fences. Many of the graves were unmarked or bore only faint hand-carved symbols instead of names. As she walked among the silent tributes, her heart heavy, something glinted in the dying sunlight. It was a small, ornate metal locket, half buried in the soil near an ancient, sprawling oak tree. Carefully, she unearthed it. It was tarnished, but beautiful, intricately carved with patterns that made her gasp. They were the same Ndenga symbols she'd been painstakingly translating from the mirror. Inside the locket, nestled amongst dust and decay, were two faded sepia-toned photographs. One was of a strong-featured black woman, her eyes piercing, her face bearing a distinct scar that ran from her brow to her chin. Anya felt a jolt of recognition. It was the woman she had glimpsed in the mirror's reflection in her apartment. The other photo was of a young girl, no older than 10, with a serious expression and a striking resemblance to Anya herself. And then the true twist revealed itself. Etched faintly on the back of the locket, in the same delicate Ndenga script, were two names, Mosi and Ilara. Anya sank to her knees, the locket trembling in her hands. Ilara. That was her great-great-grandmother's name. The mother of the woman her grandmother Ruth had spoken of in hushed tones, the one who was said to have seen things. This locket, buried here for generations, wasn't just a historical artifact. It was a direct, undeniable link. The woman in the photo was Mosi, the skilled carver, the daughter of the moon. And the little girl was Elara, Anya's direct ancestor. The mirror hadn't just held a secret message. It held the literal reflection of her bloodline. The scar, the face, the heritage. It was all laid bare. The mirror wasn't just linked to her family. It had belonged to the very people who created her family, and Mosey was her ancestor. The resistance she'd faced, the whispers in the town, and even Silas Croft's attempts to acquire land, it wasn't just about hiding history in general. It was about hiding this specific history, a lineage tied to resilience, hidden knowledge, and a powerful, almost spiritual connection to the land and their African heritage. The mirror, the locket, the Ndenga script, these weren't just clues. They were family heirlooms passed down in silence, waiting for the right moment and the right person to find them. Anya realized the truth was far more personal, more deeply embedded in her own identity than she could have ever imagined. She wasn't just unraveling a historical mystery. She was unraveling herself. For generations, our stories were whispered, not written. They were carved into memory, into wood, into objects that carried our spirits across time. We see a young Mosey, perhaps in her late teens, her hands nimble and strong, meticulously carving patterns onto a wooden frame. Her face, though young, already carries the wisdom and focus Anya saw in the photograph. The scar on her cheek is visible, a mark of strength rather than blemish. She works in a secluded corner of the plantation, hidden amongst trees, her movements graceful and deliberate. Other enslaved people watch her, their eyes filled with quiet admiration and reverence. Mosey, my ancestor, was a keeper of the old ways, a carver, a healer. She understood that while bodies could be enslaved, spirits could not. And that knowledge, that lineage, could be hidden in plain sight. We see Mosey carefully incorporating the Ndenga symbols into her carvings, sometimes on everyday tools, sometimes on items she traded or sold. She teaches young Elara the meaning of each symbol, whispering stories of their homeland, of brave ancestors, of the song of the river that flowed through their blood. Elara absorbs every word, her small hands mimicking Mosey's carving motions in the dirt. The mirror she created wasn't just for reflection. It was a vessel, a map, a testament. It was her way of ensuring that future generations, even those far removed from the brutality of the plantation, would find their way back to their truth. She etched not just a language, but a legacy, a lifeline across generations. The scene shifts slightly. Mosey is older, her face more weathered, but her eyes still possess that piercing wisdom. She is completing the mirror, carefully carving the last intricate details onto its back. She looks at her reflection, then at Elara, now a young woman, standing beside her. Elara touches the mirror, understanding the weight of its purpose. This mirror, my mirror, wasn't lost by accident. It was entrusted, handed down through whispers and secret signs, waiting for the right moment to reveal its true purpose. It waited for me. The flashback gently fades, bringing us back to Anya in the cemetery, the locket still clutched in her hand. The sun now setting, casting long shadows. The revelations from the locket propelled Anya into a new, more urgent phase of her search. Armed with Mosey's name and the clearer lineage provided by the locket, she revisited Mr. Vance. His eyes widened when he saw the photographs. "Mosey," he breathed, a reverence in his voice. "We have stories about Mosey in the oral tradition, child." She was a legend. Mr. Vance led Anya to an elderly woman named Sister Maybelle, the unofficial matriarch of Cottonwood Creek's oldest black families. Sister Maybelle lived in a small, vibrant house filled with quilts and the aroma of sweet potato pie. She had a memory that spanned generations, a living archive of community history. When Anya showed her the locket, Sister Maybelle's eyes welled up. "Bless her soul," she murmured, tracing Mosey's face in the photo. "Mosey, she carved the truth so we'd never forget." Sister Maybelle revealed that the mirror was indeed a legendary piece among their elders, though few knew its exact location or the full extent of its hidden message. It was known as the speaking glass, a sacred artifact passed down through a hidden network of descendants, always meant to be discovered when the time was right. "The mirror, child," Sister Maybelle explained, her voice strong. "It's more than just a family tree. It's a map to land. Land that was taken but never truly lost. She then pulled out an old tattered quilt, its squares telling stories in abstract patterns. One particular square, faded but still vibrant, contained a pattern identical to one of the symbols on Anya's mirror, but with an added subtle detail, a small, stitched compass rose. This was the final piece of the puzzle. The Ndenga symbols on the mirror, combined with the locket's information and this quilt, outlined the true location of a hidden land deed and a small, untouched parcel of land near Evergreen Plantation, land that had been secretly purchased by Mosey's family generations ago, held communally, and fiercely protected even through the era of land theft from black farmers. The climax wasn't a physical struggle, but a rush against time to legally secure this land. Silas Croft's interest in the area had escalated. He was actively trying to buy up old parcels, using his influence to pressure families and quickly close deals. Anya knew she had to act fast before this final piece of her ancestors' legacy was lost forever. With Mr. Vance's help, Anya delved into complex land records, obscure legal precedents, and unearthed old county maps. The process was fraught with bureaucratic hurdles and veiled attempts by local officials, still influenced by old prejudices, to obstruct her. She faced condescending remarks and thinly veiled threats and even a direct, unsettling offer from Croft's legal team to buy her out. But the mirror's purpose, the faces of Mosey and Alara, fueled her resolve. Finally, after weeks of relentless effort and the quiet support of Mr. Vance and sister Maybelle, Anya stood in the county clerk's office. The official, a reluctant but ultimately lawful woman, stamped the document. The land, a small but historically significant parcel, was legally reclaimed. The deed bore the original names of Mosey and her closest family members, testament to their foresight and courage. Croft's attempts to claim the land were thwarted, his efforts to erase this particular piece of history unsuccessful. It was a profound victory, not just for Anya, but for the silenced voices of her ancestors. The mirror hadn't just revealed a family mystery, it had unveiled a legacy of resilience, resistance, and the enduring power of a people determined to own their own destiny, even when everything was stacked against them. A year later, the small parcel of land near Cottonwood Creek transformed. It wasn't a grand estate, but a quiet, sacred space. Anya, with the help of Mr. Vance and Sister Maybelle, established a heritage garden and memorial, a place where the history of the Ndenga people and the enslaved community of Evergreen Plantation could be honored. The antique mirror now stood proudly in a small, purpose-built pavilion at the heart of the garden, its surface polished, its hidden message visible to those who knew where to look. It wasn't just a mirror, it was a portal, reflecting the past into the present. Anya, now deeply rooted in Cottonwood Creek, continued her teaching, but her lessons now carried an even deeper resonance. She spoke of resilience, of hidden histories, and of the power of ordinary objects to hold extraordinary truths. She shared her story with students, encouraging them to explore their own family histories, to listen for the whispers of their ancestors. This mirror held more than just my reflection. It held the untold story of my people. It showed me that history isn't just about dates and names in books. It's alive. It's in our blood, in the artifacts that survive, and in the resilience that flows through us. She often visited the garden, especially at sunset, feeling the presence of Mosey, Alara, and countless others. The scar on Mosey's face, once a mystery, now felt like a badge of honor, a symbol of perseverance passed down through generations. I found a secret message hidden in an antique mirror, and it unraveled a family mystery I never knew existed. It rewrote my understanding of who I am and where I come from, and it taught me that sometimes the greatest treasures aren't found in gold or jewels, but in the echoes of the past, waiting for us to finally listen. If Anya's journey inspired you, don't let your own family's whispers fade. Dig into your roots. Uncover your history. Like this video, subscribe for more powerful stories, and share in the comments. What hidden truths do you believe your ancestors are trying to tell you?